At 11:40 at night, the office looks less like a place and more like a reflection. You're still at your desk, still moving the cursor, still finishing the part that is technically in front of you. But your mind has already left the spreadsheet. The city is pressed against the black glass. The air conditioner keeps humming like it never gets tired. One row of motion sensor lights goes dark, then another. And somehow, in that quiet, one old moment comes back. This is the ghost of the mistake you made 5 years ago. Not the mistake itself, exactly, but the way it can keep living in small rooms, late hours, and ordinary silences. In this video, I'll walk through why an old moment can still feel present, why it can follow someone who looks completely fine, and one small way to meet it without turning it into a life sentence. The ghost of an old mistake is what happens when the event is over, but your mind keeps treating it like unfinished business. The calendar says it was years ago. Your life has moved. Your role has changed. People may not even talk about it anymore. But inside, something still reacts as if the old version of you is sitting in the room, waiting to be judged again. One common reason is that the mistake happened during a moment when your role mattered. Maybe you were the manager, the person who signed off, the one who looked calm while everyone else looked for a decision. When something went wrong, it did not only feel like an error, it felt like proof that your judgment could hurt people, slow them down, or make them lose trust. So years later, even a small approval, a late-night report, or a message from your director can bring back that old pressure, like the past is leaning over your shoulder again. It can make ordinary responsibility feel heavier than it appears from the outside. Sometimes, it comes from the fact that nobody really witnessed what stayed with you. Maybe the issue was handled, the email chain ended, the numbers were corrected, and the team moved on by Monday morning. But you remember the pause in someone's voice, the way a coworker avoided eye contact, or the small silence after your name was mentioned in the meeting. Because no one said, "This hurt more than we admitted," your mind kept a private file open, trying to understand the emotional cost without any clear place to put it. That can make the memory feel strangely alive, because it was never fully spoken. There's also a quieter reason. You may be using the memory as a warning system. If the mistake surprised you once, your mind may believe constant checking is the price of staying safe. So you reread what you already read, ask for one more update, delay a decision that is probably ready, or keep working long after your attention is gone. From the outside, it can look like dedication, but inside it may feel more like fear wearing a professional face. The old mistake becomes a smoke alarm that goes off even when there is only steam. This is why the memory can show up at strange times. It may not appear when you tell the story out loud. You may even sound calm when you mention it. "Yeah, that was a rough quarter," you might say, with a small shrug, as if it belongs in a neat folder called experience. But then it returns when the office is almost empty. It returns when the room is too quiet. It returns when there is nobody left to perform competence for. Imagine a manager sitting alone on the 23rd floor, late enough that the cleaning cart has already passed. The laptop is open to a budget file, but the numbers have started to blur. On the glass wall, the city lights float over their own reflection, so it looks like there are two cities, one outside, and one trapped inside the building. The manager clicks into an old project folder by accident, sees a client name from 5 years ago, and feels that small drop in the stomach. Nothing dramatic happens. No alarm. No message. Just one file name, and suddenly the room feels colder. They remember the choice they made back then. Not a cruel choice. Not a reckless one. A rushed one. A choice made between meetings, while two people waited for an answer and the team was already behind. At the time, it seemed reasonable. Later, it became the thing everyone quietly worked around. Someone stayed late for weeks. Someone else lost confidence in the process. The manager apologized where they could, corrected what they could, carried on because that is what work asked of them. And now, 5 years later, they are still holding a piece of that night. If you've been there, you're not strange. You might know someone who lives like this. This is what an old mistake can look like when it becomes a ghost. It does not scream. It waits for quiet. It waits for fatigue. It waits for a room where the lights are turning off one row at a time. A painful part of this pattern is that growth can make the memory sharper, not softer. When you are more mature now, you can see the old moment with better eyes. You understand what you missed. You notice the pressure you were under. You can even see how someone else may have felt. That does not mean you are going backward. Sometimes it means the present version of you has more language than the past version had. But language can arrive late. And when it arrives, it may bring discomfort with it. You might think, "I know better now." And that is true. But the sentence can carry two different feelings. It can carry quiet wisdom, or it can carry punishment. Quiet wisdom says, I can see more clearly now. Punishment says, I am not allowed to forget that I failed once. The difference matters, because one helps you live with the lesson, while the other keeps you working inside a courtroom that no one else can see. There is also an emotional contradiction that managers, leaders, and responsible people often carry. You may be trusted now because you learned from the past, but the trust itself can feel uncomfortable. People bring you decisions because they believe you are steady. They ask for your approval because your judgment has weight. And yet, the more they trust you, the more you may remember the time your judgment was not enough. So success does not fully silence the ghost. In some moments, it gives the ghost a nicer office. That is why late nights can be so revealing. During the day, there are meetings, messages, numbers, quick answers, people walking by. You can stay useful. You can stay needed. You can stay ahead of the feeling. But after hours, usefulness gets quiet. The building empties. The reflection in the glass becomes sharper than the view outside. And your mind may bring back the small scene it never finished processing in ordinary human terms. Not to destroy you. Not to prove you are bad. Often, just to ask for a different kind of attention. One small thing that may help is separating the mistake from the person who made it. Not with a speech. Not with a grand forgiveness moment. Just a plain sentence, written in the kind of language you would use in a work note. I made a rushed call during a high-pressure week, and it created consequences. That sentence does not excuse anything. It also does not turn your entire identity into one bad decision. It lets the memory be specific, which can make it less ghost-like. You can also write what the mistake taught you in a way that belongs to the present. Not a long confession. Just 3 lines: what happened, what you understand now, and what you do differently because of it. For example, I missed the downstream impact. I understand that speed can hide cost. I now pause before signing off when more than one team is affected. This works because it gives the memory a job other than haunting you. It becomes part of your judgment, not a shadow standing behind it. And there's something else here that is easy to miss. Sometimes the ghost stays because you keep asking the past for a cleaner ending than it can give. Many old mistakes do not come with perfect closure. The people involved may be gone. The company may look different. The version of you who made the call may barely exist anymore, except in memory. There may be no final meeting where everyone says exactly what you were waiting to hear. So the softer question may be, can this stay true without staying in charge? It can be true that you made a mistake. It can be true that it affected people. It can be true that you are not that exact person, in that exact room, with that exact level of understanding anymore. The past does not disappear just because you became wiser. But it also does not get to be the only witness to who you are now. Maybe tonight, the manager closes the file. Not dramatically. Just closes it. The air conditioner keeps running. The city still reflects in the glass. The lights at the far end of the office are already out. And for a moment, nothing is solved in a movie kind of way. But something is named. This is for people who look responsible from the outside, but still carry one old moment like a quiet stain inside. The mistake was real. The regret may be real too. But a ghost is not the whole house. Sometimes it is only a room you keep walking past, afraid to open the door, not realizing the light inside has been on for years.